Yeah, that feels like Game of Thrones.
Yeah. We have a few minutes, only a few minutes. I wish I had more time to talk amongst ourselves here. I wanted to ask you what inspired you to get into the world of film in the first place. Was there a movie? Was there something, Damien, that said, I don't know, I'll start it. When I was 8 years old, I just fell in love with the movies and Jerry Lewis and stuff like that. And Lady and the Tramp, very first movie I saw that, I had to go out and get a dog named Lady, but that was in CinemaScope, by the way. But that, I don't know, and I just always needed to be in this business. Was there something like that, something that sparked for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was Disney as well for me. It was, I always wanted to, I don't remember ever not wanting to do movies, so I think it's kind of, my earliest movie memories are sort of, they're very hazy, but I do remember the first time I went to a movie theater was to see Peter Pan, Disney's Peter Pan. I remember watching Cinderella a lot. I remember watching Lady and the Tramp, just all those Disney movies and drawing at the time. So I think at first I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to, be Disney. And then I started kind of watching live action movies and playing around with my dad's camcorder, and destroying it repeatedly. And that's kind of, but I was kind of, that was sort of the beginning of it.
Yeah. And so and you always knew after that you were going to be in this business, or?
Well, I didn't know if I would be, but I knew I would try.
Good. Kenny, what about you?
Well, I grew up going to the movies pretty much every Sunday of my childhood with my father and my older brother, and my father would take us to, alternately, that was a time when New York City had a dozen or more revival houses. You could see old movies in really big screens, and this was in the 60s and 70s, so we alternated watching old Warner Brothers movies and Casablanca and All About Eve and White Heat, and with the current movies at the time, which was The Godfather and One Floor Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Godfather 2 and Dog Day Afternoon. And that went on for years and years and years. And when we were really little, he would explain the plots to us along the way, so it would be kind of caught up by the time we got to the movies. And I remember seeing the Marx Brothers, all those movies. So that was just a real infusion in my personality. That's just part of my DNA from the time I was a little kid. And then I got interested in the theater in high school, and I never thought I would be in the movie business or in the cinematic arts until I was in my late 20s, and something just changed. I started writing screenplays for a living, and then I suddenly put together the idea of plays as a creative outlet, screenplays as something that I'd learned how to do, and then directing as something that I wanted to do more and more.
Barry, you used to go to the movies all the time in Miami, right?
Nah.
Yeah?
I got into film because of college football, man. I was at Florida State University, which has a very amazing football team. Which has an amazing football team and a very big stadium. And the film school was in the stadium because when they put all that damn money into the athletic program, they had to offset it with the arts. I grew up, I was a public school kid, and Florida State is a very big public school, but the state of Florida was trying to drive the film industry in the state. And so they built this school where the tuition was very low, all the equipment was paid for, all the film stock was paid for, and I was walking by the stadium and saw a sign that said film school. And, I'll get on my soapbox for a second. This was a program that was funded by the state to drive an industry within the state that was sustained by government funding for a public university. So I think our education in this country is very important. I wouldn't be here without those systems being in place.
As it's under threat right now, I think, in this country, I think that's a really important thing to say from everything I've heard. Ava, what about you? What sparked you to get into this business?
Yeah, I didn't pick up a camera until I was 33 years old, which was 10 years ago. I was working as a publicist in the industry because I loved films and was given the gift of film through my aunt, Denise, God rest her soul. And she would take me to the movies. We were in Compton. There's no movie theater in Compton, just like there's no movie theater in Selma. So you can't see Straight Outta Compton in Compton. You can't see Selma in Selma. These are predominantly black neighborhoods, and there are no movie theaters there. So we would have to take the bus into LA to see movies. And I remember the first time she took me to see a film, and she said, "Okay, Ava, you're gonna have to read this film." I said, "Read this film? Read the film?" She's like, "Yes, it's got something called subtitles." And I remember sitting there for the first time, and it just blew my mind that I was reading a film. And I think I was like 9 years old. So anyway, she gave me the gift of film, all kinds of beautiful experiences through cinema that just stayed with me. And so when I finally got the courage up to make my own pictures, when I was 33, that was really the first time I ever even imagined that I could. The same year that I imagined that I could was the year that I picked up a camera and did it.
Wow. It's like never say never. Denny, what about you? Earliest memories of...
Me, I think it's like the idea of becoming a director is like, I don't know if it would make sense in English, but by filling the holes. I will explain. It's like one of my oldest memory is that there was a second floor in my house, and I was like supposed to go to bed, and I was watching a movie in between the stairs, you know, and making sure we were not making too much noise. So I just watched, and that movie was always playing late at night. Anyways, I just watched I remember vividly watching the opening of 2001. And being traumatized and making a lot and it's strange because to see it was a little screen, you know, in the corner, and to receive the impact of that beginning. Then I remember also the first movie that I wish I wanted to see by myself was, I remember seeing an ad on a paper. I was 10 years old in 1977. Which means I was like the target audience for Star Wars. And we arrived at the theater, and we arrived 20 minutes late. So it means that when I arrived, C-3PO was already captured by the Jawas. It was like I saw the full movie like months later. So it's like, it means that I think sometimes I like to find amusing anecdote to say how I became a director. It's just those 20 minutes, it took me a month. So it means that I had to figure it out, to imagine, to dream about those 20 minutes for a long time. And you know what? I never said that, but when I saw it, I was disappointed. And because what I had dreamed was so And another anecdote about filling the holes is that I remember there was a priest, my mathematics teacher in first grade, came one day to me and said, "Villeneuve, you will not understand what I saw last night. You don't have the culture to understand that." And he put on my ears, it was the first Walkman I ever saw, and he put the Wagner's music. And he said, "Last night there was American helicopters on this music attacking a village." And he started to describe to me Apocalypse Now, you know. So I discovered Apocalypse Now through sound. I discovered a part of Star Wars through an absence like that. And the movie I was the most afraid of, one of my aunt come once at home, and she started to describe a woman pulling out a little mouchoir, how do you say that, out of a wall and finding a tooth. And she was describing The Tenant of Polanski. And I was afraid of that movie. I'd never been as afraid of a movie like that, but I saw that movie 25 years later. But for 25 years, I was terrorized by The Tenant, not having seen it. So that is how I became director.
That's great. Driving down this street, driving down State Street, I saw the one theater that's actually not involved with the film festival, I guess, because they had commercial movies in them there. And I only saw one side of the marquee, but it was Rings and Split and Resident Evil Part 29 and all that, you know. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to a film festival. It's all about great movies and stuff like that. And yet it is so hard to get the movies that you guys, each one of you, have gotten made this year, made in the state of this business, because they just want to do, you know, the standard stuff, at least the studios do. Can you talk about how difficult it is you know, and why you persevere, why it's worth doing? Ava, do you want to take that? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I mean, my film was made with money from Netflix. And I loved working with them because I think it really just represents the traditional boundaries and barriers collapsing. And so I take heart and hope in the idea that that there's a new way of making things we're in the midst of, and I find it very exciting. You know, we all started as independent filmmakers, and I don't know, you were in Canada. Did you start as an independent filmmaker? Yeah, independent filmmakers. I don't know much about the Canadians, but I know they're nice.
No.
Very nice.
You're so sweet.
Yes, but
No.
started in the independent space where you just have to, you know, take what you can and make it work. And feeling on the outside, for me, I'll speak for myself, feeling on the outside of the studio system. Now there's another system being created that's outside of them. And so just to have more options, I think empowers me to know that if this isn't going to work over here, I can do it myself, or I can go over here. The traditions are all changing, and there's a new way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, please applaud. But just, I think so too. I don't think it's where it ought to be yet, but I think we're in the midst of somewhat of a resurgence, and there's a lot more films that are of a lot higher quality that are made by individuals that are being picked up, and the financial entities are becoming interested in that kind of way of doing things again, the way they were in the 1970s. And we're not quite got back yet, but I think it's much more, the field is much more wide open. It's much less difficult, I'd say, not just to get the films made, but to get distribution for them. This year, I think, is a really, not just these films, but a lot of the films out there, it's a really, I'd say, positive and encouraging field right now, and I just hope it continues going in that direction.
Yeah, there are places like Netflix and Amazon that are actually paying big bucks. They were just at Sundance paying a lot of money for a lot of these interesting, you know, smaller movies now, because there's different markets for it now. Do you find that, Damien, you know, that there's much more opportunity now?
Well, I mean, I agree with, I think, both Ava and Kenny of, you know, I don't know if it's much more, but there's certainly more. I think it is telling that, you know, like three of the people seated here, their movies are distributed by companies that either didn't exist or weren't in the business of distributing movies just a number of years ago. And that to me is like really heartening. That to me is actually the best thing that's happening, is companies like Amazon and A24 and Netflix just getting into the business of making, distributing movies, paying, you know, bucks for movies at places like Sundance. It's the only reason that places like, you know, the older studios are kind of, you know, will pay anything at Sundance is when a place like Netflix or Amazon or A24 kind of starts the bidding. You know, it's like you see it time and again, and it just kind of helps maintain a culture that really, I think, of, you know, either independent films getting bought or original content being produced that really seemed like it was on its last legs once, you know, for the past 10 or whatever years, once the DVD business, you know, once the bottom went out of that. This seems like it's a new way, and it's exciting.
Wow. It's exciting, but in the same time, I must say, and I agree with all what you said, but it's also this new system, this new power that the internet is also, for me, for the first time, because very often there was like people that were predicting the end of the big screen. And for the first time, yeah, I'm starting to be afraid when they are talking about releasing the movie live online at the same time as being on screen. There's less of a it seems of a culture for the big screen, which me, I'm very romantic, and I deeply love. I hope it will survive the revolution, I must say. Yeah.
I agree with that, because you cannot beat this. And these theaters, you know, this is so rare to be in a single screen theater, and to watch a movie on your keychain is not where I want to go.
No, that's it. La La Land on the iPhone is not La La Land, you know. It's like
yeah, well, you can, you know, it's fine, but it's like you're missing something. So, you know, and I feel sad for audiences coming up now that all they know is to watch movies on smaller screens and things, because the magic of the movies is still this, right? All right. Now we come to the part where you get an award, and you get an award, and you get an award. No. You're all going to get awards here, and so well deserved here. And to present them, We have a local resident here who did, how many people remember Tom Cruise sailing across that room in his underwear in Risky Business? Yes, well that was directed by the man who's about to come out here, who also did a wonderful movie with Jessica Lange, very young Chris O'Donnell, called Men Don't Leave. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it, and so many other things. Please welcome Paul Brickman.
Hi. I just wanted to quickly say something I observed while I was watching the show tonight, and that is there were two common threads that ran through all these projects, and one was a really strong emotional center in each piece, and the other element was that in this corporate world of ours, they were like fiercely personal visions, and that's where the good stuff comes from, and it just gives me a lot of hope. I just wanted to start there. Here's a fun fact for you. You know, there are a lot of unions, there are a lot of guilds in Hollywood. The Writers Guild, the screen actors, the producers, the IA, which has cinematographers, editors, craftspeople, and whatnot. And they all have pensions, and many years ago, they did a study of the statistics on the pensions, and the union that had the members that had the shortest lifespan was the Directors Guild. Not without reason. Not without reason, because what you didn't hear tonight is the kind of stress that these people go through to get these things done, and the kind of stamina it takes to power through. Now, they are treated really well in the business, but they give up a few years of their lives. It's a trade-off. But I thought we should get these awards out quickly while they're still all healthy. So if we can, who are my presenters here? For outstanding directors from the film festival this year. Denis.